Mr. Shelter, I don't mean to cut you off. We have time limits here, and you have had the opportunity. I'm not cutting you off.
It's your moniker constantly. It's unfair.
No, it is not. You have had more time. I've been generous with the time. I'm sorry.
But, Mr. Chairman.
We have a room full of people. We have a panel to go after you.
Fine,
You're not the only
fine.
person testifying.
Okay.
But I take offense to the chairman pointing out that all CEOs are corrupt because they're millionaires.
If you ever wanted to witness a Senate hearing turn into a full-on clash of egos, political theater, and billionaire versus Bernie fireworks, then buckle up, because the showdown between Howard Schultz and Bernie Sanders was everything you'd expect, and then some. What was supposed to be a routine grilling about Starbucks' union practices spiraled into a heated back and forth that left the room buzzing, the senators scrambling, and Bernie, well, let's just say his temper clocked in earlier than usual. And hey, before we dive in, if you enjoy hearing the truth without the partisan filter, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and let's jump right into it. So picture this: Howard Schultz, the ex-CEO of Starbucks, sitting before a line of senators ready to take shots at him for how his company treats workers, especially those who want to unionize. Enter Senator Tina Smith, coming in hot with one of those classic emotionally charged comparisons. You're a billionaire. They're your employees. The imbalance of power is extreme. You could practically hear the dramatic music swelling.
You're a billionaire, and they are your employees. The imbalance of power is extreme, and that is why people want to come together to form a union.
But instead of folding, Schultz responded with the corporate equivalent of "actually no," and suddenly the tone of the entire hearing shifted.
I was the CEO of the company, and I have the preference and the right to communicate to our people about what it is we believe is right for Starbucks.
Tina starts by hammering on wage differences. Unionized workers say they're losing hours, losing money, and being treated differently from non-union workers. And Schultz hits back with something senators don't usually hear: actual legal context. According to him, the company couldn't just hand out certain wage increases to unionized stores because, under labor law, once workers unionize, those decisions have to be bargained at the table.
Call your employees partners. Do you value your employees or your partners that want to join a union or have joined a union? Do you value them as much as you value those that have not yet joined a union?
We have respect for every single partner who wears a green apron, regardless of their choice to go for a union.
He wasn't refusing benefits out of spite. He was trying to play by the rules of the system the workers themselves opted into. It wasn't the gotcha moment Smith thought it was, but Tina wasn't letting go. She pivots from wages to feelings. She accuses Schultz of acting personally offended that anyone would dare question Starbucks' ethics. She implies that he thinks only bad companies deserve unions, so Starbucks shouldn't have one.
So yesterday I had the opportunity to meet with some unionized Starbucks workers from Minnesota, Gracie and Elizabeth, and they tell me that Starbucks is cutting their weekly hours. They estimate that they're losing $4 an hour in wages because the company won't allow them in unionized stores to access credit card tipping when that's available to workers in non-unionized shops. And they tell me that they are simultaneously understaffed in their stores and unable to get enough hours to pay their bills. If these folks are your partners, why are you treating them differently than the non-unionized workers?
A bold claim, especially considering that Starbucks is basically the poster child for progressive corporate culture. But here's the part she seemed to forget. Just because a company offers perks and good vibes doesn't mean it's immune from unionizing. And just because someone is a billionaire doesn't automatically make them a villain.
When we raised wages in May, my understanding was that under the law, we did not have the unilateral right to provide those benefits to partners who were involved in collective bargaining. It would not be proper to take one piece of the puzzle out of the negotiating process, since the people who have joined the union have decided that they want to negotiate a contract. It is our preference and our right to negotiate that contract fairly and objectively.
Still, nuance wasn't exactly the star of the show. And then, here's where it gets interesting. Tina pulls out what I like to call the Senate's favorite party trick, the "you're a billionaire" accusation. That one phrase can turn any hearing into a morality play instantly. You're a billionaire and they are your employees, she says, like it's the final blow.
I want to just touch on one other thing. I've been listening really closely to you today, and I also come from the private sector. had my own company at one time before I moved into the public sector, and I've been really struck by your focus on what an excellent company you are. And honestly, it sounds as if you are personally offended or even insulted that anyone would question you or your company. And it seems as if you feel that only bad companies should be unionized, that there's something nefarious about a company that is done something bad and therefore they need to be unionized, and that Starbucks doesn't need a union because you are a good company. But I think, Mr. Schultz, that is not your decision to make. And I believe that there is an inherent value in coming together to organize that would address this imbalance of power that I think the many, many Starbucks
Senator, you're
partners
right.
sitting behind you and in Minnesota feel. I mean, you're a billionaire, and they are your employees. The imbalance of power is extreme, and that is why people want to come together to form a union.
When a politician starts lecturing someone about wealth, I'm already grabbing popcorn because the hypocrisy usually isn't far behind. And sure enough, it wasn't. Because right after Smith finishes painting Schultz as some kind of corporate overlord, the commentary outside the testimony hits her where it hurts. Democrats love to act like the champions of the working class, but let's not pretend their pockets aren't lined with donations from companies that would rather fire every employee than let them form a union. Even Howard Schultz and his wife donated to Democrats for years. Now, this is the part where Schultz finally snaps back, and honestly, it was one of the rawest moments in the whole hearing. Tina and Bernie had both been hammering him with this billionaire label as if he woke up one day and someone handed him a giant sack of money. So he pushes back hard.
The last thing you said, and it's been said many times by the chairman, I just want to make a point of that. This monarch of billionaire, let's just get at that, okay? I grew up in federally subsidized housing. Let me finish. I grew up in federally subsidized housing. My parents never owned a home. I came from nothing. I thought my entire life was based on the achievement of the American dream. Yes, I have billions of dollars. I earned it. No one gave it to me. And I've shared it constantly with the people of Starbucks. And so anyone who keeps labeling this billionaire thing...
And the moment he starts explaining how he earned his success, Bernie Sanders, who's supposed to be chairing this hearing, cuts him off with the line, "I'm not cutting you off," which ironically is exactly what he was doing.
Mr. Schultz, I don't mean to cut you off. We have time limits here, and you have had the opportunity. I'm not cutting you off.
It's your moniker constantly. It's unfair.
No, it is not. You have had more time. I've been generous with the time. I'm sorry.
But, Mr. Chairman.
We have a room full of people. We have panel to go after you. You're not the only person testifying.
Okay.
This is classic Bernie. He loves to say he's fighting for the working class against greedy corporations, but the second someone pushes back on his carefully crafted narrative, the man panics like a computer freezing mid-update, and the room could feel it. Schultz is trying to finish a thought, and Bernie's trying to shut it down while pretending he isn't shutting it down. The mental gymnastics should have earned him a medal. What made it worse, much worse, was the fact that Bernie himself is no stranger to big money. He loves to rail against billionaires, but back in 2019, he took donations from the wife of billionaire David Hall, whose company was literally charged with unfair labor practices. And let's not forget the part where Bernie bragged about becoming a millionaire because he wrote a best-selling book. So apparently wealth is okay if he earns it, but corrupt if anyone else does. Make it make sense. The hearing gets even spicier when Senator Markwayne Mullin steps in. Now, Mullin doesn't share Schultz's politics, not even close, but even he couldn't resist calling out the theater in front of him. He points out the obvious contradiction. Bernie is attacking a CEO for being wealthy, while Bernie himself has accumulated over $8 million after almost 3 decades in office.
And I'm not trying to defend your company because, quite frankly, politically, we're on totally different ends of the spectrum. And so the irony of this hearing is actually kind of funny. And I do want to point out some hypocrisy about this hearing with the chairman. But I take offense to the chairman pointing out that all CEOs are corrupt because they're millionaires. You know, if you make a lot of money, you're corrupt. Yet it's bothering to me because, Mr. Chairman, you yourself have been very successful. Rightfully so. Glad you have been. You've been in office for 28 years, and you and your wife have immersed a wealth of over $8 million. And in fact, your quote on being wealthy and being a millionaire was, well, if you write a bestseller, you can be a millionaire too. If you can be a millionaire, why can't Mr. Schultz and other CEOs be millionaires and be honest too? If that's the case, then why is it that Mr. Schultz, who actually creates jobs and a bestseller of a book, isn't creating any jobs? Why is it that he's corrupt and you're not? Why is it that all CEOs are corrupt because they're wealthy, and yet our chairman, who is wealthy, and I'm glad you are, you're not?
The hearing suddenly turns from let's grill the CEO to let's talk about the chairman's bank account, and the irony was thick enough to spread on toast. Now, stepping back from the theatrics for a second, this hearing was supposed to be about workers' rights, unions, and whether Starbucks tries to discourage unionization, but what we saw was something else entirely. We saw the raw political tension that erupts when a billionaire CEO refuses to play the role that politicians assign to him. Schultz wasn't the only one being questioned. Bernie wasn't the only one giving attitude. Everyone in that room had an agenda. Everyone had something to protect. Everyone had donations and narratives and egos on the line. And when politics mixes with billion-dollar corporations, you can always bet the sparks will fly. Still, maybe the most fascinating part of all this was something that barely got talked about, but says everything you need to know about Schultz. Back in 2019, he floated the idea of running for president as a centrist independent. That alone should tell you just how untouchable he felt in the corporate world, and how much potential he believed he had in the political one. Imagine a presidential debate stage with Howard Schultz in the middle, Bernie Sanders on one side calling him a greedy billionaire, and someone like Elizabeth Warren on the other demanding a per-cup tax on every Starbucks Frappuccino sold. That alternate universe would have been wild, but here's the real takeaway. Howard Schultz wasn't just defending Starbucks, he was defending himself, his story, his rise, his entire identity as the self-made billionaire who built one of the most recognizable brands in the world. And when a room full of senators tried to turn him into the villain of the movie, he fought the narrative with facts, with frustration, and with a little more fire than anyone expected. And honestly, it made for great political theater. So what do you think? Was Schultz justified in defending his success and pushing back against the billionaire narrative? Did Bernie overplay the class warfare card? Was Tina Smith genuinely standing up for workers, or was she just trying to score political points? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is one debate where everyone seems to have an opinion. And of course, if you're enjoying this kind of breakdown, make sure you hit that subscribe button so we can keep bringing you more straightforward, no-spin coverage of the political circus we all have to sit through. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss what's coming next.